Okay, welcome to the Plunge into Tech webinars. Plunge into Tech is a free summer webinar series to help you learn more tips and tricks that you can incorporate into your practice for the upcoming school year. If you missed our last webinar with Jared Kavili on Google Tools, you can still watch the recording on CoreWing Connect. Some things to keep in mind during the webinar: follow the Plunge into Tech hashtag on Twitter. We'll be monitoring it for questions. We're giving away the entire CoreWing Connected Educator series to 3 lucky recipients. Here's how you can win. On Twitter, share your best idea for using technology in the classroom using the Plunge into Tech hashtag. Be sure to like other people's ideas. The more likes you have, the more likely you are to win. Also, be sure to stick around at the end of the webinar so you can download your certificate of completion. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Kathleen McClaskey. Kathleen has over 30 years of experience in integrating technology in the classroom and in creating learner-centered environments. Today, Kathleen will be talking about personalized learning.
Okay, welcome everyone to Make Learning Personal. I'm going to share out my PowerPoint, and I just want to let you know, and I'll repeat this again, that we actually have someone in the back channel for PLearnChat. So hashtag PLearnChat and ask any questions, and when the webinar is over, I'll go and check those questions, okay? Okay, so Anna, do I have this screen on so everyone is can see this?
Yes, it looks good to me.
Okay, so thank you everyone for coming, and I want to thank CoreWing Connect and ask me to do this webinar today to make learning personal. So just a really quick intro of myself and Barbara Bray, who's my business partner and co-author of Make Learning Personal, and our upcoming publication this October, How to Personalize Learning. So here's a little bit, and Anna, thank you for your introduction. I'll give a little bit more detail on that. My educational experience extends over 30 years as an educational technologist, a K-12 administrator, and classroom teacher, where I created learner-centered environments. In the last 15 years of my consulting and professional development practice, I've been using universal design for learning and working with schools and teachers to help them universally design lessons and to create learner-centered environments. Barbara, my partner, is not here right now because she is in flight to North Carolina, where she's going to be presenting to over 300 principals there. But Barbara lives in California, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about her. And we were introduced by a mutual friend in 2010 in California. She said we were both on the same path in education, that we should get together. Well, we joined together shortly afterwards with a common goal to help educators learn how to personalize learning. You can follow Barbara and I using our Twitter handle, so take a look at those. And if you tweet during this webinar or you want to post a question, please use these hashtags, hashtag PLearnChat and hashtag Plunge into Tech. We have Pam Lowe, our marketing associate, in the back channel reviewing questions and inserting links during this webinar. So you can always go back there and check out those links. We'll take a moment at the end to answer any questions you may have or to review any reflections or comments. So let's get going. Here are the 4 takeaways from today. First, I'm going to introduce what is personalized learning, and then I'm going to provide you a process to discover the learner in every child. By the way, that second one is actually in our new book, How to Personalize Learning, so you're getting a preview of that. Next, we'll take a look at how to begin to personalize learning by using the stages of personalized learning environments. I'm then going to conclude with why personalized learning, a question that needs to be answered by educators deciding to make learning personal in your schools or classrooms. So what is personalized learning? Well, we hear this a lot. It seems to be a buzzword. It means different things to different people depending on where and how it is referenced. Some believe it's about promoting software programs that personalize learning for you. Well, let me really be clear about this. It is not about software driving the learning. It's about really empowering the learner to take ownership to their learning by developing skills to support their own learning. Here's just a quick view of what it is, and this is probably the best because this is both visually tells the story, but let me just tell you what it says. Personalized learning starts with the learner who has a voice and choice in how they learn. They own and drive their learning, and they develop the skills to choose and use the appropriate tools to support their learning. They self-direct their learning so they're engaged in their learning, and they demonstrate evidence of learning by mastering competencies. So anyway, that's a really quick view of personalized learning. I want to introduce you to the PDI chart if you have not seen this before. This has been out since 2012, and Barbara and I developed this chart to help educators everywhere to understand the differences as they relate to the learner, and as there is so much confusion about these three terms. You can see there's a distinct difference between personalization, differentiation, and individualization. And the obvious differences that you can see in this chart are that differentiation and individualization are teacher-centered, and personalization is learner-centered. Well, you can actually download this chart, by the way, on the Toolkit tab on our website. Our website is www.personalizelearning.com, and just go to the Toolkit tab. But anyway, this particular chart has been translated into numerous languages and has been downloaded and viewed by millions of educators around the world. And it's used by both educators and parents that we understand. But anyway, welcome to that chart. So now let's get down to who the learners are. So this is all about how you can discover the learner in every child. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with this particular graphic, but there's a thing, there's a great video online, a TED Talk by Dr. Todd Rose, a neuroscientist from Harvard, who discussed the myth of average. And he points out that each learner has a unique learning map as illustrated here. The neuroscientist always tells us that there is no average learner. And I will tell you that he has actually recently published a book called The End of Average. I want you to think about your own learning map and where you are with some of this criteria here. Are you the same as the person working next to you? I don't think so. And so think about, as we delve into how we can understand how learners learn best, okay? Because every learner, no child is average. So how do we discover the learner in every child? For too long, schools have identified who the learner is and how they learn using learning styles. And some learners are labeled based on their disability. We ask you to open up a new door by using the neurosciences to understand how learners learn best and to remove the veil of disability to see the learner in every child. I created this quote 10 years ago when working with teams of teachers who are developing universally designed lessons. Over the last decade, I've trained thousands of teachers, and so many of them have told me that this quote helped them see the learner in every child. And I welcome you to use that because it really has helped. So I'm going to introduce you to universal design for learning. How do we determine how a learner learns best? Some of you may be familiar with universal design for learning as it relates to special education. I would like to dispel the myth that's only for special education. It is grounded in neuroscience, and it provides an understanding about the what, how, and why of learning, and tells us that there is variability in how each learner learns, their strengths, challenges, aptitudes, talents, and yes, aspirations. But most important for teachers is for them to understand how learners can best access and engage with the content and how they can best express what they know. So why use UDL as the lens to personalize learning? Well, let me tell you, and I want to point out that our new federal law, Every Student Succeeds Act, endorses UDL as a scientifically based approach to personalized learning. So this will become increasingly popular. It's been around, by the way, for over 25 years. So before I introduce you to the UDL lens, I'd like to point out where this came from. So if you locate the graphic in the right corner, upper right corner, you're going to notice that there are 3 UDL principles: multiple means of representation, multiple means of action and expression, and multiple means of engagement. Well, we changed the 3 principles to access, engage, and express so it could be easily used in practice. We saw this as a clear and practical way of applying the UDL principles for teachers to understand their learners, and in turn, design instructional methods and materials to meet all the learners from the start. So I hope that there's some questions out there. So a little bit more around access, engage, and express. Access, engage, and express is a lens that applies, first of all, to all learners and is a means for creating personalized, learner-centered environments. UDL is an approach to curriculum that minimizes barriers and maximizes learning for all learners. Understanding each learner's strengths and challenges in these 3 areas is the first step in creating learner-centered environments. Now take a look at this chart. Access is about how a learner first processes information into usable knowledge by accessing content through digital media, visual media, maybe through printed text, sometimes through audio means, or even through touch. Engage is about how a learner engages with the content through multiple strategies and tools to keep their interest and to think deeper about the content by designing, by problem solving, or collaborating. In the end, it's about engagement that provides the motivation to learn. Express is about how learners demonstrate what they know and understand about concepts, content, or ideas. Learners can express what they know and understand through writing, presenting, storytelling, drawing, sharing, or even through multimedia. So that's a basic introduction to this UDL lens, and we're going to be talking about it a little bit more now, how we're going to use it. Well, the UDL lens of access, engage, and express is used by both the teacher and the learner. And today I'm going to bring you through that process to discover the learner and understand how learners can learn best. So this is a preview, by the way. This is something that really no one really has seen outside of Barbara and I in our new publication. They'll be coming out in October. But this is the process in creating a learner with agency. So this process can be used to really help learners develop agency. First, use the UDL lens to create the learner profile so that learners can understand how they learn along with their talents, passions, aspirations, and interests. Next, develop the personal learning backpack that includes the tools, apps, and resources along with the learning skills to help learners set goals to become independent and self-directed. And finally, discuss the goals to develop a personal learning plan that includes action steps for skill development, along with personal, college, career, and citizenship goals. So in the next few slides, I'm going to explain how all of this is done. Ready? Create a learner profile using that UDL lens. We're going to be looking at the learner's strengths, challenges, preferences, and needs, along with their interests, talents, aspirations, and passions. So we want every learner first to be able to tell their story, who they are, and how they learn using a learner profile. Okay, and here's where the learner uses the profile and is telling them how they best, what their strengths and challenges are in access, engage, and express, and also really describing themselves in words that they get to select. We have actually what's called Who I Am as a Learner, a wonderful tool actually in the new book that really provides a lot of these descriptors that kids can use. It's too large really to share in this presentation, but hopefully that you can take a look at that in October when the book comes out. But we also want to know what the kids' interests, talents, and passions are, because these are usually sometimes the hooks to really engage them with content. And we definitely need to know what their story is. The story really is that conversation that they have with the teacher. I can really tell you that this is a very powerful way to make connections and build relationships with learners. So here's a learner. This learner has reading, writing, and organizational challenges. And children with this profile, by the way, often do not see themselves as learners. But in this case, when the learner uses the personal learner profile, he can have a conversation with the teacher about who he is as a learner and what he may need to support his learning. So let's take a look at his strengths, where he visualizes what he hears and that he likes to lead and collaborate with peers. Next, let's take a look how this information about the learner can help build the personal learning backpack. But before I go, I want to point out, just take a look at the words that this learner describes about, he thinks describe him best. Look at all the interests and talents that this kid has, lots of aspirations, wants to be a forest ranger, comic book illustrator. This is a learner that's probably in, maybe in 4th or 5th grade, even 6th grade. And this is how this learner is expressing who he is as a learner. Now, how many of you actually know your children in this way? But let me tell you, conversations get pretty deep, and it really helps to build that relationship with the learner. I'm going to take now to looking at the backpack. Now that we know what this learner has as far as strengths and challenges are, we can actually now really think about, say, the tools and the apps and the resources that can support their learning. But here's the other thing, that the backpack also includes learning skills and strategies. And from that conversation about this, goals can be developed for this learner, because it is about skill development in the end. So second, you're going to help the learner develop the backpack to support their learning. Discuss what tools and apps, skills and strategies that they would put in that backpack. This isn't where you are actually telling them what you're going to do for them. It's really when the learner has that conversation, and maybe they have some ideas about what could be in that backpack. But we're going to be looking at the learner's preferences and needs, because believe it or not, kids actually can express their preferences and needs and how they need to access, engage, and express. So let's take a closer look at what that could look like for the learner that we just introduced earlier. So here we are. I know this is, you have to think about really the access, engage, and express and who that child was around their challenges and strengths, but this learner indicates how he needs or prefers to access, engage, and express. From this information, a discussion between the teacher and learner takes place with ideas on the types of tools, apps, resources that could support the learning. So a little bit more. In this example, the preferences and needs tells us that he needs to access reading materials with text-to-speech tools, and they need to have tasks broken down because those were his challenges. Because his learner needs a text-to-speech tool, he's going to need to develop the skills to use that tool, by the way, to support his challenges in reading and to be able to effectively access information. Now, there's some really great tools. One of them, by the way, is a tool called Voice Dream. You may know about that. And it's a reader. It's an excellent choice for kids that need to develop independent skills in reading. But to engage with content, this learner needs to help some organization around his files, and he really needs to have checklists for his tasks. So maybe a file and folder management system in Dropbox could support this learner with this particular challenge. But let me just say to you is that I want you to take at this learner's strengths in expressing what he knows. And he really loves, by the way, to present information orally. And he really noted that in his learner profile. So sometimes we take a learner's strengths and actually enhance them. So in this case, Prezi or iMovie could enhance his strengths in presenting. And always remember that there's not always, we're not just focusing just on a child's challenges, but also on how to enhance strengths so that they can become better at what they're really good at. So in the end, by the way, we're hoping for kids to really use these types of tools to be more independent and self-directed. And the only way learners can do that is really to develop those independent learning skills. Well, out of all of this, by the way, there's some goal setting that's going to be going on because this young learner doesn't really know how to use all of these tools really effectively. So we're going to take a look at a personal learning plan. So in that personal learning plan, we're going to set goals around access, engage, and express for skill development. We're also going to include personal goals, college, career, and citizenship goals. But I'm only going to have one example for you around access because of the time limit here. But let's take a look at how you do that. So third, with a learner profile and the personal learning backpack, a personal learning plan can be developed where the learner consults with the teacher to set goals, describe the action steps to achieve each goal, and how they will determine they met the goal. And in this process, the learner acquires the skills to become an independent learner. And the personal learning plan includes goals around the skills that they want to learn in accessing information, engaging with content, and expressing what they know. But it also includes those very important college, career, personal, and citizenship goals. And we included, by way, examples of all of these in our new publication on how to personalize learning. You can see all of these in that particular book. And they're in fairly good detail. So, and citizenship goals we see is extremely important and to start those pretty early on with learners. So let's take a look at an access goal. So this young man who really needs to learn how to use a text-to-speech tool would set a goal for this. So this learner spent many years, by the way, in accessing printed materials, textbooks, and assigned books and he was not able to access printed materials, textbooks, and books because of his inability to decode words. And even though he had regular instruction in reading by, say, maybe an Orton Gillingham trained reading teacher, his fluency really impacted his comprehension. So a text-to-speech tool really is probably, or an app, is really an excellent way to support his ability to independently access reading materials and text and to help him develop comprehension skills. So, and the learner and the teacher, by the way, collaborate on this particular goal because we want the learner to really own this goal, okay? It's not about us telling kids what they need, but we actually need to help kids write really good goal statements. So anyway, in this particular plan, we're actually including a set of steps. And I know that seems pretty lofty and maybe pretty lofty for some kids and maybe even some schools, but they need to learn how to use a tool and there needs to be scheduled time to really teach kids how to use tools effectively in the classroom so they can become more independent. I want to also point out progress. Kids are actually articulating how they're going to decide how they have achieved this goal. And if you look over here, it basically says they'll be able to complete comprehension questions, of course, independently, and they'll be able to demonstrate independent reading using the tools. But let me tell you, once the goal is achieved, the learner actually provides a reflection and maintains a portfolio of his goals and his achievements. So just think about what this does for kids in the end. Skill development, goal setting, action steps, and achieving. I don't think there's anything better than that for kids anywhere. So let me sort of wrap this out on what the outcome could be. It could be a learner with agency. In education, we want every learner to become independent and self-directed so they have choices in life. And personalized learning, by the way, is about relationships, discovering the learner, and goal setting in the personal learning plan so they can become that independent learner. And the partnership, by the way, between the teacher and learner consists on regular conversation about goal setting and action steps to achieve goals and learning new skills, personal goals, citizenship, college, or career goals. This partnership says to the learner how much the teacher cares about them, their learning, and their future. And the anticipated outcome is a learner with agency. It's all about those great skills in the end. So let me conclude that a learner with agency really is a learner that is future ready We talk a lot about future ready in education, but what does that really, really mean? It does mean a learner has agency. They know how they learn. They can support their own learning, are able to develop goals and action steps to achieve them. They're able to monitor their own progress. They can design and direct their learning and reflect on their goals. And they're truly prepared for college, career, and life. Okay, so there's a lot more about agency, and we're actually going to delve into that in a few minutes. But you need to, this is a term that's being used quite a bit in the education world, having a learner with agency. So how do you even begin to make learning personal? Well, I'm going to give you some fairly quick steps, but something you should be thinking about is before you start back to the classroom. So the stages of personalized learning, and I'm going to introduce you to that chart in a few minutes, is really a process for teachers to move from a traditional teacher-directed environment to encouraging learner voice and choice in stage 1, to learner-centered environments in stage 2, to learners driving their own learning in stage 3. Let me tell you, this does not usually happen, and sometimes you may never move past a learner-centered, but this is really a process. Well, ideally, all of us want to create learner-centered and eventually learner-driven environments where learners own and drive their learning. However, most schools have systems in place that support teacher-centered environments. And when teachers first saw, by the way, our PDI chart that I showed you at the beginning, they shared with us they were concerned about moving to learner-centered environments too fast. So we created this process for teachers to take those small steps. Because it doesn't happen right away, but there are certain steps, and I'm going to introduce you to some of those very soon. But anyway, that's the chart. This is the stages of personalized learning, and we really built this from the framework of universal design for learning by redesigning instructional strategies based upon decades of brain research and neuroscience of individual differences, human variability in how we learn. So let me just sort of take you a walk through the different stages. And we really like this idea of stage 1. And this is where the teacher understands how learners learn based on learner profile. And the teachers universally designs instruction, and they offer voice and choice. So let me stay there for just a moment. I'm going to give you some introductions to voice and choice and how you could, and what that could look like in the classroom if you sort of want to dabble into this stage 1 area. And this is where most people start, by the way. And sometimes you're there maybe for a whole year, maybe even longer. So always be fair to yourself. You have enough responsibility as teachers, for sure, but the whole idea of giving voice and choice is really very important in this stage 1. In stage 2, learner-centered. This is where the learner with teacher guidance updates their learner profile. They create those action steps for learning goals and their plan. They co-design, by the way, the learning environment, and they actually co-design lessons and even rubrics with the teacher. So this actually happens when kids are very comfortable in being in a learner-centered environment. We actually have some excellent examples to give you in our book. In stage 3, learner-driven, the learner self-directs their learning by working toward becoming an expert learner who can monitor their progress and reflect on their learning as they learn. The teacher guides the process as a partner in their learning. By the way, you can actually download this chart under that toolkit tab as well on our website. So there's several charts that you can download off of that toolkit tab. I'm sure you have lots and lots of questions about this. We actually go into depth quite a bit in our first book called Make Learning Personal around the stages. So, but I'm just going to focus on stage 1. Like I think I said to you, is that we had teachers that were coming up to us and said, you know, our principal wants us to create learner-centered environments next year. And we said, really? Well, that's not going to happen right off the bat. So we are actually helping lots of principals, and Barbara is out in North Carolina tomorrow, really training hundreds of principals around this very thing about that it actually is a process. So let's take a look at stage 1. So in stage 1, personalized learning, and teachers begin to build relationship by using the learner profile, and to help them better understand how they learn. They use universal design for learning strategies to design instruction based on the understanding of their learners. And they revise lessons to look for ways to give learner voice and choice in their lessons. I hope there's some great questions coming. I'm going to check for just a minute, see if anyone is in PLearn chat, and if there's any questions that anyone would have. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'll wait to the end, but if you have any questions, just put them into PLearn chat while I go along. So take a look at this chart. Teacher and learner roles change when you move from a traditional, by the way, to stage 1. And I'm going to leave this chart up for a few minutes so you can consider how teacher and learner roles would change. You know, not only is it going to change in your classroom, but you certainly need support, by the way, in your school to really create these learner-centered environments, and the stage 1 environment at least. By the way, moving to the stage 1 is sometimes the biggest change for teachers and schools, because the teacher's starting to understand how building the relationship between teacher and learners matters. And they're working with the learner to design their learner profile and personal learning plan, and consciously thinking where they can give voice and choice in their lessons. Learners, by the way, are having brand new experiences too, and you have to really think about that, because now we're actually offering choices on how to access information or express what they know. They also can be a brand new experience for many teachers, where for some, this is a natural extension for how they taught. Yet for others, this may be very difficult. And we understand all of those. And stage 1 is about changing teaching practice one step at a time while dipping your toes into personalized learning. So consider how the learner profiles inform the design of your instructional methods, and how the personal learning plan gives the learner a voice in how they learn. So these are really, you can go back, by the way, to see this webinar again so that you'll be able to, because this is a lot of information in a very short period of time. And I'm sure that you have lots of questions. And we've left our Twitter handles, but we also even left our email address actually on that second slide. And we'll show it to you at the end as well. So in our upcoming book, How to Personalize Learning, describe the 7 elements of learner agency along a continuum to illustrate what happens to each element through the stages of personalized learning environments. So let me introduce you to the first one, continuum of voice. The research paper, Motivation, Engagement, and Student Voice by Eric Tishalis and Michael J. Nakula from the students of this center, explained in their spectrum on voice-oriented activities that learners can start articulating their perspectives as a stakeholder in their learning to directing collective activities. Well, they can move from offering opinions to being leaders of change. We adapted their continuum so it was more aligned with the stages of personalized learning environments. And by the way, you can access this and the description around the continuum of voice out on our website. Just do a search on continuum of voice. Most learner voice activity in school, take a look at expression. It resides in expression, consultation, and participation. This is a process for teachers who are taught to be in control. This is the first element of agency and the toughest for teachers. And this is where the research from Tishalis and Nakula help guide the process of moving from teacher-centered to learner-driven in a personalized learning environment. So let's take a closer look at stage 1 in the continuum on the left-hand side. I'm just going to give you some description around expression and consultation. Expression is where the learners are used to being in a traditional teacher-directed setting. They raise their hands to answer questions, and they offer opinions when the teacher guides them. This is being learner-centered is when the teacher guides the learner, by the way, in creating their learner profile to learn how they learn best. So this is when kids are actually being introduced to the learner profile at that very teacher-centered level. Next, around consultation, things change a little bit. The voice actually does change, and the teacher's asking for more input and feedback in guiding the process. And this is also the time when the teacher can sit down with each learner to get to know them and validate them as a learner. And as they consult over the learner profile, they can work with the learner first by developing a backpack, personal learning backpack, and begin developing the personal learning plan to meet learning goals. Again, you can take a look at this. You can actually go to that bit.ly that's actually on this particular graphic. That will get you there too. bit.ly/continuum voice. But anyway, we really see this, and I'm not going to explain all of the descriptors around this continuum, but there's a really good description out on the website. But just want to give you sort of an introduction about voice and what happens in that teacher-centered stage 1 environment. Now, this is just sort of like a recap of what it looks like at each stage, so you get an idea of how kids actually do progress through these different stages. In stage 1, learners are sharing their story, okay, and how they learn using the learner profile, and the teacher understands how to design lessons with learner voice and choice. In stage 2, the learners become a partner in learning with the teacher by co-designing lessons and rules in a competency-based system. And in stage 3, learners develop their learning goals and on their own, very independently, and in their personal learning plan based on their passions and talents. And they're actually designing their own learning experiences. And the teacher's providing guidance in this process. Okay, so that's what voice looks like over the 3 stages, just in a quick summary. Now let's take a look at choice. So, because I'm only going to do voice and choice, there are actually 7 elements, and actually you can see all 7 elements are out on our website, by the way. So go take a look at those and read about them. Well, here is the continuum of choice, and let me just review the second element. Let me point out that providing choice can be confusing. And if learners are choosing from a set of pre-planned choices from a list of options from the teacher, then the teacher is ultimately the one responsible for the learning, not the learner. So the goal is to move from a participant who chooses from a menu of options to a self-directed learner who chooses the purpose for learning. And this takes time and a process for both teacher and learners. So let's take a look at choice, what it means for stage 1. In that participant level, the teacher provides a menu of options for learners to learn content through images, videos, text-based resources, audio, hands-on activities, or even interaction with peers. And learners can showcase what they know through different opportunities, from writing a paper to creating a performance. So there's more choice on expression. When they get to the co-designer, that's really getting a little bit closer, by the way, to more learner-centered environments. But let me just explain what that looks like. In the co-designer, the teacher is a tour guide for learning possibilities and then gets out of the way for learners to go on their own journey to learn. And the teacher collaborates with the learner to brainstorm ideas for lesson design, assessments, and resources to use with activities and demonstrate evidence of learning. Again, you can find this graphic on this continuum of choice out on our website. All right. So we're a little bit over halfway, I think, at this point. And so I'm just going to sort of, give you a synopsis of what this looks like over the 3 stages. So here's a look what choice looks over the stages. First of all, learners in stage 1, learners are choosing the environment where to work in the classroom, and the teacher offers a set of options for learning activities. This is called dipping your toes into personalized learning. In stage 2, learners choose the topic, or they create a question to design a project. That's a possibility in stage 2. In stage 3, learners are very self-directed, where they identify problems or issues, and then they choose a team to develop an action plan around that problem. So just to give you a quick overview. again, all this is in that new publication coming out. Let me just give you a real snapshot of what the learner is experiencing in a personalized learning environment. Here's that snapshot of who the learner becomes. The learner understands how they learn best, and they have access to flexible learning anytime, anywhere, at any place. The learner participates in the design of their learning and is able to reflect on their learning and monitor their own progress. The learner becomes a partner in learning with their teachers, where they identify their goals and their learning plans. And finally, the learner follows their passion to find their purpose. So this is just sort of that snapshot of what a learner could be in a personalized learning environment. Okay. So, by the way, this doesn't all happen right away, but this is the ideal situation about where the learner is. So I'd like to sort of conclude on why personalized learning. And then, if you remember when I started this particular webinar, I said each educator, when embarking on changing the culture in the school or class, needs to answer this question. I want to tell you that, and I'll tell you that we actually have a course called the 5 W's of Personalized Learning, and the last one is why personalized. And we actually have all our participants do a 60-second elevator speech on why personalized learning. Something that is really necessary if you're going to be doing this, so that if someone asks you, whether it's a parent, maybe another teacher, could be administrator, or it could be a community member, you need to be able to tell them why you're doing this, okay? And because sometimes they just don't understand, and it's very helpful if you can be really succinct in that 60-second elevator speech. That's about 100 words in 60 seconds. But anyway, let me just begin, because I really love this part the most. So why personalized learning? Motivation, engagement, and voice. And I've referred earlier to the research by Dr. Eric Nashalis and Dr. McCullough in their report, Motivation, Engagement, and Students at the Center. And Barbara and I absolutely love sequence, and because these are all very true, and this is really based on some excellent research by these two wonderful educators. They say, without motivation, there's no push to learn. And without engagement, there's no way to learn. And without voice, there's no authenticity in the learning. Those are things to really be keeping in mind about why you would personalize learning. That's just one great reason. So why personalized learning? It's about ownership and responsibility to learning. We love this quote, by the way, from the late B.B. King, that the beautiful thing about learning is that nobody can take it away from you. But let me just say to you is that ownership to learning is something that we need every learner to achieve. Wouldn't you just love kids to take that ownership and be excited about coming to learn every single day? And they take full responsibility for their learning. And we know actually some kids like that, but some kids don't have that great experience in school, and they don't really take that ownership or responsibility to learning. But in a personalized learning environment, ownership to learning is key. I want you to think about children today. And we want them to be problem solvers and critical thinkers for a world that's ever changing. So we really want to create problem solvers and critical thinkers. And we want all kids to be in that realm. So think about how you'll do that as you're personalizing learning. YPL, we want to help children to be collaborators, communicators, explorers, and questioners. And just think of who they could be if we created learning environments where this was everyday practice. These two pictures, by the way, are from a wonderful school called Epic Elementary. You can find that out on our website under the models. And they have created such a school. It's a K-5 school, and it's absolutely wonderful. YPL, we want to create learning environments where learners are self-directed learners, where they're innovators, inventors, and designers that contribute to that larger society. We want kids to be involved. And this looks like maybe a great little makerspace that someone has created. And we know that that's really happening in lots and lots of classrooms around the country. And this is a great way to get kids really engaged, by the way, in learning. And they're not thinking that they're learning at that point. And of course, why we want really to be able to children to experience the arts, and we need to consistently nurture and support creativity and creative thinking. And the art's just critical to learning as well as play. So, and another reason why we want to personalize learning. We definitely want to create global citizens that can help solve real world problems at a global level or in their country or even on a local level. We want kids to be great global citizens, okay? Because we're all contributing to each other. Think about the learners you know. We want them to be motivated, engaged, and lifelong learning. We want them to have a love for learning. So there's nothing I think that a teacher doesn't want to achieve in the classroom is to help create a love for lifelong learning. And most of all, we need to discover the learner in every child, by the way, by using the UDL lens of access, engage, and express. We need to see every child as a learner. If you notice that during this presentation, I haven't used the word student because a student really denotes something very different in the classroom than a learner. And you too, by the way, all the teachers out there and all the wonderful educators, you are all learners too. And we all need to see, when we look in a classroom, we need to see the learners in the classroom. Because we want them to follow their passions, to find their purpose. We want kids to be able to be that independent, self-directed learners so they can really do all of this and to set wonderful goals and to truly follow their passions. I'll just tell you a little personal note. I had a nephew who just graduated from high school, and the note that I sent him is take the time to follow your passions and experience those passions. And then if you actually follow those, then you truly will be have a wonderful life if you can do this. Anyway, I'm at the very end of this webinar, but I'm hoping that there's some questions or reflections that came through P-Learn chat, and I'm actually going to check on some of those. But if you are sitting there and you want to put a question in, go ahead, because I'm just going to go check P-Learn chat right now. All right. All right, let's see. So I have someone who says it needed to create learners with agency in my own class. Full semester courses are so short and jam-packed already. Well, Amber, let me just tell you that it can actually be done. Knowing your learners and who they are is very important. And we have a wonderful teacher who has done this in his math classes here in actually in Massachusetts. His name is Rick Rowe. You can find him on Twitter. You can connect with him. But he has done this work and is helping kids develop agency in his classroom. And he has actually 3 different grade levels that enter his classroom. So he has 3 preps. But I can tell you and be happy, if you look on Twitter, look for Rick Rowe, RIKROWE. You can find him there, and he'll communicate with you on that. But it does take time to develop agency. Just remember, this is a real change up for kids. This isn't something that they're used to, asking them how they learn best or asking them what they're passionate about, and helping them develop plans for their future. All of those things may be very new to them. And so I'm hoping that you can know that this does take a little bit of time, but I just wanted to lead you to a really great resource. And I know that Rick has a whole group of people out on Twitter who are really trying to do all of this in their work at the high school level. So anyway, I hope that you can take a look at that. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see. Diane, thanks for putting out the continuum of choice. Okay, so, and thanks, Jill, for that quote. Is there anyone else, by the way, who has a question? Just, and I'll be happy to answer. We have a few more minutes. Okay. So, Pam Lowe is out there, and if you go to PLearn Chat, you can actually take a look at all her comments and links that she's put out here as well. And let's see if I see any other questions here. Okay. I don't see any other questions, but so let me just go on and just give you some ideas about the things that we do. And maybe some of you actually know us already, but we do a regular blog out on personalizedlearning.com. And if you ever want to email us, here's our email, personalizedlearn@gmail.com. I also want to point out that we actually have a PLearn chat. Our next one is August 15th at 7 o'clock, and it's on the continuum of ownership. And we do these chats during the school year about every other week, unless there's a holiday that sort of doesn't allow us to do that. But we announce all our PLearn chats in advance. I also want to talk to you about, we actually do the 5 W's of personalized learning. If you are familiar with the book, Make Learning Personal, that book was written around our course. And we actually have a fall session that's starting up on September 21st. We actually even have a standalone if you'd like to take that course at your own pace. So all of this is, we have a whole set of course, services to support schools in really moving to personalized learning. So you just contact us. We'll be happy to talk with you or set up a conference call with you. But anyway, I'm thinking I'm just about done. And if I see any more questions, okay, so Pam put out Rick Rowe's a virtual classroom link out on PLearn Chat to let you know so that you can take a look at his stuff. All right. I'm going to turn this over, I think, to Anna.
Okay, well, we have a couple slides here at the end. If you liked what you heard today and you're interested in learning more, we have a couple books published by Corwin. One is Make Learning Personal, and the one that's coming out soon is How to Personalize Learning. And if you use code N16678 on the Corwin website at checkout, you can save 25% off the list price, but you have to order before August 31st. And we have one more slide in there if you go to the next one. If you need a certificate of completion, and you can either scan that QR code there, or you can download the certificate of completion at the BitDo PIT Cert 8. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us today. And I just wanted to say, Kathleen, I like going back to the very beginning of the webinar, I like how you talked about focusing not just on the challenges, but also how we can enhance the strengths of the learner. I really thought that was a very important point.
Yeah, and it's about skill development. It's not about fixing the child. It's about really getting them to develop really good independent skills in the end. Because when they walk out that schoolhouse door, that's all they have. So we definitely want them to have a set of skills so they can make all those wonderful choices in their life. So I really, really enjoyed this webinar, and I think I threw a lot out. Let me tell you that so much of this, some of this is actually either it's in one book or the other, but also if you actually go to our website, the blogs are such an education, and the PLearn chats are just phenomenal. I was sharing that with Anna before we started today, and This is where I get my professional learning that takes place. People come from all over the world to contribute to discussions around personalized learning, so we'd love to have you join us. Please share that out with your colleagues. P-Learn Chat on August 15th at 7 o'clock, so Eastern Time.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today. And if anyone is interested in attending future Plunge into Tech webinars, we have 2 more left in the summer webinar series. Next week, Jenny Majera will be discussing